is one of the latest buzzwords that we hear in the market today. It is very interesting when we look at how traditional electrical appliances are actually able to hook up to the internet to do smarter and greater things. Now, this actually poses a challenge to the service providers today. Why? In the past, we used to have a subscriber that probably uses his mobile phone, uses his laptop to surf the net to do certain things. Now, this subscriber may not necessarily be online all the time. He will log in when he needs to do his stuff and he will log out when he doesn't have to. It's very different when you look at, say, a machine. Let's say we look at a fridge. A fridge with internet capability will actually be able to make orders of stuff. For example, I'm running out of Coke and I need to buy more Coca-Cola today. It automatically hooks up to a system, makes that purchase and have it delivered to your home. This machine, on the other hand, will always be online. It will always be tracking and talking to the servers to update its inventory. Now, this typically poses a challenge to the service provider because now, instead of one subscriber having 3 or 4 devices, we'll start seeing a single household with maybe 10, 20, 30 different connections that requires a lot of attention when it comes to internet availability. In some countries where service providers have seen the adoption of Internet of Things and have seen its growth, they actually faces quite a little bit of problem when it comes to things like the speed, the performance, the availability, and also the capacity that's able they have to handle all these different electrical appliances that is actually accessing the internet. One of the things that F5 do today is to actually help the service provider cushion this pain. We actually help the service provider by efficientizing and optimizing their networks, allow them to build an environment that is able to handle more traffic with the same infrastructure, same footprint. With IoT growing in the market today and having a lot more use by ordinary people, it actually affects the service provider because it actually creates a lot of additional data that the service provider have to handle. Consider this. In the past, a typical subscriber only have, say, 2 devices, 3 devices. But if you look at with IoT, machines, electrical appliances, TVs, maybe game stations will actually always be connected to the internet. This actually adds in a lot of load to the service provider network and could cause a few problems. For example, it will cause the pipeline that the service provider have to be filled up very quickly, because in the past we used to have users who are on demand, they log on just to do something and they log off. But if you look at machines today, it's always online, and because it's always online, it's always consuming bandwidth. Now, this is the first thing that a service provider will start to feel when appliances, when all these different machines are connected online. F5 actually has a very interesting solution that we actually help service provider to do more with less. I know that's a little bit of a cliche, but really what we look at is we look into the traffic, we sit in between all traffics, we understand what is a priority traffic, what is very important, we classify them, we reroute them when required. Okay, there are instances, for example, we may find that traffic for, say, surfing the web is a lot more important compared to machine. Not because machine-to-machine bandwidth is not important, but because a subscriber can actually feel it if he's surfing the net and he finds the net to be very slow. One of the things that we do very well is to actually increase the throughput, minusing all the latency and mitigate the effects of all the additional traffic a service provider is having. At the same time, we help a service provider to consolidate different devices in their network. Now, why is this important? By consolidating different devices in a network, we actually reduce hop. And when we reduce hop, we actually make the network a lot more efficient, a lot more faster from a security perspective. Consider it this way. You actually now have credit card information. You actually have a lot of personal data that is embedded into the IoT devices. One of the things that F5 can actually do to help the service provider is to allow the service provider to provide some form of value-added services that allows the customer to protect their identity while they are using all these different IoT devices. In F5, we have a few products that actually helps out with the service provider to address the problems that I mentioned earlier. Now, for example, we actually have a product called Policy Enforcement Manager. What this product actually does is it actually helps the service provider to manage its TCP stack, to manage bandwidth and prioritize traffic, to route, redirect, or implement certain controls onto different types of traffic. Now, this is very important because we need to help the service provider to manage a separation of data. Which data needs to be real-time, which data can pretty much put on hold for a little while, but still deliver it through at the end of the day. At the same time, we actually have a carrier-grade firewall. This actually allows the service provider to manage all the traffic, implement again, but this time security policies, not just acceleration, but security policies to help them protect their subscribers from being attacked. Attack could be from many different perspectives. It could be from a DOS, a DDoS perspective. It could be from a form of identity theft, where people from the outside is trying to hack their machines to probably collect personal data, alright, that can be used in many ways. And this is where F5 is really strong. Because we understand traffic, we understand pretty much the entire 7 layers of the OSI traffic. We look into this traffic very deeply. We apply policy very specifically. And with that, we are actually able to help the subscriber at the same time provide the service provider a new avenue of income and increase their ARPU. So operators in Asia Pacific have a good idea on what's going on. However, at this point of time, the adoption of IoT is not as high as it should be yet, or rather, it's being adopted, but maybe like 1 in 1,000 devices is an IoT device. Now, when we start seeing this increasing to 10 out of 1,000, or maybe 500 out of 1,000, or half, the operators themselves understands this problem. They are somewhat ready. However, there are a lot more things that they can consider, or they should consider, when building this particular network to be ready for IoT. They are actually able to use our devices, number one, to perform traffic reporting, to understand how many devices today are IoT devices. With that, they can actually plan the network a lot better. Now, it's hard to just say that, we need to build an entire infrastructure to address something that we are not so sure how much that growth is going to be. But this is where it gets interesting, because with F5, we actually help the service provider grow as they grow. Essentially, the way that we work is to provide a platform that allows them to scale in many ways. It could be from a perspective of NFV. It could be from a perspective of virtualization. It could be from a perspective of SDN. And we allow all these different technologies to be bundled and used together to help the service provider to be prepared. Like I said, they are somewhat prepared today. There's a lot more they can do. However, F5 can actually start as a platform to allow them to report on what they have so that they know what to do as they move on. I always feel that it's quite a waste if you were to build an entire infrastructure for something that you may not see yet. But this is where it gets interesting, because with F5, we are able to help the customer plan in accordance as and when they require it.